Sewer Authority for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. As always, we're being joined telephonically and through Teams. So I'd ask all those joining in that fashion to mute your devices when you're not speaking. And when you do speak, please announce yourself for clarity of the record, your name for clarity of the record. All right. Move on to agenda item 2, which is a 15-minute public comment period. Are there any members of the public here this evening that would like to speak? Anybody on, Simone?
I don't have anyone on Teams from the public.
Well, if people show up later, we can always reopen agenda item 2. I'll close that and move on to approval of the minutes of the September 24th, 2024 meeting. It was in your board package, and if you've had a chance to read those, I'll entertain a motion. So, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bill. First and second. All right, are there any questions or comments on the minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries.
John is joining.
Sean's on, okay. All right, moving on to agenda item 4, we have 3 items on the board package. We've got the monthly financials. Are there any questions or comments on the financials for last month? Okay, myself neither. Neither. I was going to ask real quick, Jeff. I went by Hale Millie today. They're putting all new windows in. They've got some other construction going, so something's happening there. But it just seems like it's taking forever. You know, like they're just going in little chunks of
That's
work.
not the story of the project.
But it's
When you start to build out
But yeah, but they haven't given up on it. It just looks like there's 4 people in, one circulars are working on it, but all right.
It's an infusion of cash from the miles.
Yeah, all right.
Back down again.
But we put the gas line in almost 4 years ago, and it was a little in advance of what it was.
Right, a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
That's fine.
Well, thank you for putting it in. Thank you. All right. All right, moving on to the, so we did the leadership team template. No questions or comments. Move on to the 2025 board meeting schedule. Are there any questions or comments, additions, subtractions from the board meeting schedule? I had none.
So it's typically going to be, it's the 4th Tuesday, except we moved it so we could attend the NEP conference. And is there any other changes other than?
I'll pull it up. I'm just fast forwarding to that's the financials, sorry.
And we also adjusted the finance and audit committee meetings so we could be more accurately reflect when the budget would be completed and ready to go. So those were the 2 major changes, but no different than what we scheduled last year.
Going back to the leadership, the team template, I was just wondering, where do we stand with the number of employees today?
So Laura can probably get the exact number, but we have in the budget, I think 152, and we're probably 148.
148, okay. And does that include the ones that are on, pending here?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, very well.
But Bill, in the upcoming budget, we do expect to be adding some staff to manage all the projects that we have going on this. And also looking at our succession planning for potential, retirements in the next few years.
Thank you.
How does adding people to working on our forthcoming projects relate to hiring consultants to work on our forthcoming projects?
It's easy. We need to have basically horses in the stable, essentially, for when we do have these retirements. So if we are going to be doing something that is a 1-year project, we would not necessarily hire an internal staff. We would hire a consultant to do that, or 2 or 3. But if we are expecting some major changes in a department where we would have either promotions from within or, need to replace somebody in the future, we would like to make sure we have the talent in place to take that spot. And it's nice to have that talent from within whenever we can. So we would closely, if if we had a position that we feel can be very stable for 5 years, we would never necessarily hire an additional body. That would be a consultant. But if we feel we could use some additional resources within that time period, we probably would hire, and get that additional person. There's things like the gas bond where we will have, projects paid for essentially 5 years. So that's one where potentially we would be looking at, adding some additional staff in that area. And other areas where we're looking at people leaving in that time frame.
Okay, Bill's everyone set? All right. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the CMEC update, which is myself. The CMEC board met on September 26th. Very similar to last month. The member return for August was $27 per megawatt hour, which is 121% above the budget of 12. Projected member power cost with member return was $85 per megawatt hour, which was 17% below budget, the budget of $103 and 47% below the regional benchmark. The year-end projection for member power cost with member returns slightly lower than last month at $95 per megawatt hour, which is 17% below the budget and 45% below the regional benchmark. So just very similar to last month. We're going to wind up with a very good year relative to our competition. The hedge member residual energy cost for August was $53, which was slightly above the budget of $52 and above the LMP price of $37. Energy used for the month peaked on August 2nd. It required both spot purchases and a one-day short-term purchase of 160 megawatt hours at $90 per megawatt hour. So that just shows you what happens when you get these. That was was caused by a slight heat wave, but both the short-term, the spot market and the short-term markets, peaked where ordinarily the LMP is $37, but on those days it was $90. So it's almost 3 times the cost on that one day. So that's my CMEC report. Are there any questions or comments? All right.
Yeah, I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
From one of the CMEC meetings, and I don't remember which one. But Dave Meisinger was saying that they have delayed, I guess is the right word, their plans to do utility scale battery projects in several of the owner towns. And one of the things I think he said in his commentary was that they're having difficulty finding good locations. And part of the difficulty in finding good locations was the chicken and egg situation with us and our substations. And so I guess I'd like to understand whether our substation upgrade is having an impact on utility scale battery production, that location, and how that can potentially resolve itself.
Yeah, so we are designing a 34.5 loop. We are doing conceptual design of the new substation. So both are happening in parallel. We also have decommissioned the jet, which gives us about 10 megawatts of location on the circuit between here and Penn Street. So we do have locations that will work in Norwich, but not throughout our whole service territory. We are, limited until a load comes on board. There will be some additional loads, hopefully with cannabis in the next year. There's potential, we'll talk about an executive session of some very large growth opportunities. But they want to make sure that the load is sustainable for a long period of time. Hopefully the life cycle of the asset. So if it's a 10-year battery life, they would want a 10-year load to guarantee. So that in 5 years, if Solar Steel goes out of business, you're stuck with something that you necessarily can't perform. So that's what they're kind of looking for there. And I think they also are going to include it in strategic planning and, knowing that we will have flexibility in the near term to put it pretty much anywhere where we want to put it on our system.
And I guess just one other question on utility scale batteries. Is there a disposal problem with them?
Yes. And it's kind of gonna be like fracking. When fracking first came out, you know, they were dumping all kinds of toxic chemicals and everything else. And they cleaned up their act, but they also have obtained quite the reputation. It's gonna be interesting to see how, it takes a lot of rare minerals and materials to build these. And then what do you do when they're at their end of their useful life? There's not a lot of projects that are at their end of their useful life right now. So it is an issue. I'm sure the industry will figure it out and get it right. But clean is not really 100% clean right
It's
now.
got a low level of radioactive waste. They still haven't figured that out.
And, when I was at the state pension fund, we had an investment in a shopping mall in Denver that had an asbestos problem. And at one point, we had to buy all of the merchandise in the mall and take it to a toxic waste dump. And that's when I learned that toxic waste dumps, if they go out of business, call you up and say, come get your stuff. You haven't actually disposed of it.
Cradle to grave.
Yep, that manifest that I'm signing off on is like when we're getting rid of material from the sewer plant right now, is gonna be here for my predecessors long after I'm gone.
I had heard years, this was like 3 or 4 years ago, and they were talking about companies working on recycling lithium ion batteries. And I don't know anything about the technology, but they were talking about recovery rates of like 80 and 90%.
Wow.
So if they can recover most of these minerals, I don't know how much you really throw away. But nonetheless, I haven't heard anything since. It kind of all just disappeared. But-
Yeah. But I think a lot of it has to do with how economical it is to, as well. You can do it.
Yeah, but right, is it just not worth it? Yeah, so. Yeah, all righty, well, thank you, Roger. All right, then we'll move on now to agenda item 6 was the mutual aid update. For that, I'll ask Jeff Brining to speak, and then after Jeff will be Eric McDermott.
Yes, and we've got a large member of our team here. They will introduce all the team members, but we're very proud to not have done one mutual aid event this season at a large scale. But to go down to Georgia, the Carolinas, and off to Florida, it says a lot for our people leaving their families and driving halfway across the country to help our fellow mutual aid members. So Jeff, want to kick it off?
Awesome. Get 3/4 of my speech.
Sorry.
Well, let me start with the most important part. I want to introduce our people. Obviously, you know Eric. Next to him is Tony Ritzy. He's our electrical substation manager. Next to him is Kramer Sullivan, one of our main linemen. Next is Scotty, who is our line foreman, and his wife. And to highlight the point that Chris made, this is a huge sacrifice for families. You can be gone a week, sometimes 2 weeks. And obviously, there's a lot of slack to pick up, and we appreciate you picking that up. So thank you. Next to him is Tom Holmes, another one of our main linemen, and Jeff Burgess, who is one of our chief linemen, and actually our most senior lineman here. A lot of experience there. So this is not a new thing that we do. We go all over New England and we go all over the country, as you've seen, but it offers a great opportunity for us to work with other utilities, provide that support. Hopefully they'll provide that support as they do for us when we need it. But also you gain, and these guys can speak to it, but just in side conversations, the level of experience that we gain going out, working on different systems, working with different utilities, to learn different ways of doing things. So even though the primary goal is to help get their customers back online, there's a lot in for us as well. And I know when I got the call from Eric, 9:30 on a Sunday morning, hey, can we do this? Absolutely. Roger McGinnis came in, got the trucks ready, they were rolling out to lunch. Driving it. You guys can see what it's like to drive a line truck to Florida. They got down there and got back. And I just also want to mention Nate Demick, who's another one of our young, he was not able to make it tonight as part of the team to Georgia and South Carolina. So Eric, I'll turn it over to you to share some pictures. And again, just wanted you to meet the people that make it happen.
All right, so as Chris and Jeff said, very recently, only within the last couple of weeks, we had to respond to 2 hurricanes. I want to emphasize this was a national level effort. Matter of fact, the chairman of our board at NEPA was actually on the phone with the president of the United States at the end of this as we were wrapping up. So this got national level attention all the way down to here at FDU. We started with a response to Georgia and South Carolina. So on September 25th, we got a mutual aid request through Northeast Public Power Association and their relationship with the American Public Power Association to provide support down to Georgia. That request was followed by 3 more as they were ramping up and the hurricane was growing at that time. So all told, we pushed 16 crews down to Georgia. We had Scott, Tom, and Nate, who's not here tonight, immediately volunteered to go down there and help out. And I'm going to turn it over to Scott just to spend a couple of minutes about what they found.
Just a lot of trees down, a lot more than usual, a lot more than usual. And a lot of people kind of desperate. We're glad we were there. And I really get a hand to these guys. Tommy and Nate's not here, and Jeff and Kramer weren't with us, but they went to Florida. But those are the guys that are really doing the work on the ground. Those are the guys that are putting somebody's rock wall back after they put a pole on the ground and make sure everything's nice, neat, and the professionalism they have is unbelievable down there in the community. They can't thank you enough, and it's an eye opener for sure, and it's a good feeling to put people's power back on, whether it's in Norwich community or Georgia or South Carolina or Florida. The people there are very grateful when they ask you where you're from and you tell them Connecticut. They can't believe it. Like, wow, you came all the way from Connecticut, and it's like, yeah, we're here. We're here to get your lights on. So the positive feedback from all these communities is overwhelming for these guys and myself, and it gets relayed back upstairs. You don't hear all the stories, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of hours for these guys, and sometimes the conditions aren't the greatest, but that's, we're there for people and getting these communities back up.
So once these guys restored power in Georgia, they were pushed up to McCormick, South Carolina. They had been hit even harder than the communities in Georgia. That was one of the things that made this storm very interesting is actually the communities that had planned for it had a lot less damage than, unfortunately, the communities that hadn't. So from there, they pushed up into McCormick, and all told, they were gone for about a week and a half. They got home, once they were released, they got home around October 4th. And then on Sunday, as Jeff said, October 6th, we got another request because Milton was approaching Florida and Orlando Utilities Commission was looking for help. We go to the next slide. So again, we immediately volunteered. This time, Tony, Tom, and Jeff headed down, or Kramer, I apologize, Kramer, you're in the back. Kramer and Jeff headed down. We were teamed up with 2 other NEPA utilities. All told, we pushed 15 crews into Orlando. Tony, why don't you talk about your experience there?
Yeah, so we got the call on Sunday morning. Jeff Kramer and I came in, we got the trucks ready, and we met up with Julio and Boylston. And that was our crew. I went down as a supervisor. So we made the journey to Florida, took 3 days to get down there. And in Florida, these guys know it's all backyard pools. Almost everything's fine. And between Julio, Boylston, and these guys, come out to pull together. So
Just to be
It's a lot of
specific,
work.
I can't get the bucket truck in, so they literally put spikes on, like you climb the tree. They climb the pole that way and work it.
yeah,
Very, very physical.
every backyard lined with fences, and it's like a jungle, so you're going in and out, trying to find the problem. And then get it restored, and like Scott said, everybody was grateful. Everybody's nice to us, offering us water.
Let's go to Walt Disney World.
No, I wish, but no.
Not getting home next week.
She give you a free pass. Now, are these all municipal utility companies?
They are. So this is the important part. So these are all communities just like ours that we're responding to. This was NEPA's largest mutual aid effort since Irma struck the Virgin Islands back in 2017. All told, 48 utility crews and 114 personnel we pushed into communities just like ours. And the benefit we have of being part of this, right, of part of this group, is that these utilities will then turn around and help us during our time of need. And again, it's all municipal power, it's all line crews working together, and that builds the community of municipal power, which makes us different than your IOUs.
And all voluntary. Nobody was said, you have to go to Florida. This was a complete voluntary action by our team who wanted to go and help.
How many trucks did we send? One or two?
What's that?
How many trucks? did-
So, we sent 1 truck each, so 2 trucks total, but 1 truck each.
Well, that's fabulous. It's very good that we're there, or you're there representing Norwich, and they can see, and these add, like I said, they ask you where you're from. I'm from Norwich, Connecticut, holy cow. And these people probably, maybe they've never even been to Connecticut. But it's a chance to, show other people in the country, here we are, and we're just like you, we're here to help. And so it's very nice to wave the flag of, Norwich, Connecticut, so thank you.
You should all be really proud.
Well, gentlemen, you're welcome to stay as long as you want, but you're also welcome to leave if you'd like.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item 7. We have 3 strategic discussions this evening. The first one is the natural gas construction schedule with Barry Ellison.
Right. So Jeff, did you touch base if Barry's gonna do it online or if you're gonna cover it?
He's doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, I'm sorry, I don't see it up on the screen.
It's not up on the screen yet, Barry.
Okay.
Put it up top.
This is just a kickoff of this project, and we'll have much more details as we get more involved, but we thought it was important that.
Sorry, what do you mean, the natural gas grant schedule?
Yes,
Is that in the board drive? Is that somewhere in here?
I'm not seeing it. Can we start with the other one?
yeah, why don't we stop then? You want to-
All right, we'll move on to the 2025 board meeting schedule. That's Chris Rhodes.
Oh, that's an easy one.
I love that.
We already had the discussion on this, and just wanted to see if there's any modifications or changes needed for the board. I think it's consistent with what we've routinely done, and when we moved it, it's for a good reason, either near a holiday or near the NEPA conference.
Okay. Did you want to talk about the strategic plan, Chris?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
So Michelle sent out a link to everyone to feedback. That's for the leadership team and for the board. I know Bill's done. Thank you, Bill. I got mine done this afternoon, and we need to get that done as soon as we can. So if anybody has missed that, we can resend that. But it's probably takes about 20 minutes.
I can hear you now, yeah.
Jeff talking on?
So I can.
Yeah, I can do that.
Send it to you.
Absolutely, Bob.
I couldn't access it on my computer. I don't know why.
All right. I don't know if Sean has received it or done it.
I didn't do it yet.
Okay, so would you like to so it's at the top of your inbox as well, Stuart?
All right, you insist.
All right, we will resend it to the entire board. Good. Okay. All right, and why don't we continue on right to the,
Did you find the presentation?
They're working on it.
okay, they're working on it, so.
All right, do you want to
Why don't we go right to the moratorium, and that, we do have a presentation and Shailene here.
All right, here we go.
Good evening. So, the NP winter moratorium is starting on November 1st. It's an annual program, which is regulated by the state of Connecticut. Runs November 1st through May 1st, and what it does is it protects natural gas and electric from being interrupted for non-payment for customers who qualify. Sorry, it's broken. That's okay. And they qualify based on receiving Social Security, unemployment, state or city assistance. If they have a serious medical condition, which is certified by a physician, or their income is less than 125% of the poverty level. This is showing the number of hardship filings per fiscal year. 2024, we had about 1,600 customers who filed for hardship, which was the first drop since before the pandemic. One of our programs that we have is the MPU matching payment program, which is an arrearage forgiveness program, which assists the customers who are past due on their account in bringing their account back down to zero. It increases our revenues, especially throughout the winter moratorium where customers tend to make less frequent payments. The qualifications to participate include they must be a current gas or electric customer. They have to have a past due balance and they've had to have received energy assistance for the previous heating year. Last year's program, we finished out with 76 customers of the 326 customers enrolled, crediting just under $261,000. This year, we enrolled 220 customers at the beginning of the program. Their outstanding balances were just over $500,000. The program is ending October 31st, but we are on track to have 31 customers finish the program with $161 credited as of September. This is just showing the number of enrollments for the last 5 years. MPU also partners with Norwich Human Services. They have their own matching payment program, which is on a much smaller scale. They had 14 customers assisted. Norwich Human Services qualifies the customers based on a case management plan that they have with them. It's more an individualized program based on the customer's personal finances. Of those 14 customers, we received and credited just over $10,000 to them, and the program will be wrapping up in December. Operation Fuel is another program that assists customers. We are a fuel bank. This year, we processed 72 applications for just under $42,000, which both the number of applicants and the dollars awarded doubled from last year's program. There's much more funding available this year. Energy Assistance is another great program where customers have begun their applications. We have a full-time TVCCA representative in our office currently. Costs us about $30,000 a year, but it's absolutely worth it. They assist the walk-in customers applying, making appointments. We had 1,500 customers receive the assistance last year, bringing in just over $900,000. And that ties in with the community assistance rate, which we talked about in August as well. So in November, we rolled out the community assistance rate, which qualified by TVCCA, so they meet income qualifications for the customers. We have just under 2,200 customers enrolled, which saves them 10% of their electric usage. We're on target for the 1-year mark, crediting or saving customers just over $300,000. And if they're enrolled in auto pay, their savings doubles to 20%. Currently, we have 192 customers on auto pay. And MPU participates in the Low Income Energy Advisory Board, where we make recommendations for state programs such as energy assistance or the other monetary funds that assist our customers. Which also includes the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program. This is also a program that's administered through TVCCA. All of the previous programs that I spoke about are only for electric or natural gas. This program assists customers who are delinquent on their water bills or in a non-pay situation. Last year, they were able to assist just under 250 customers, totaling just under $70,000. These are a few of the community partners that we work with: Norwich Human Services, the United Way, Soldiers, Sailors, and Marine Funds, area churches, Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, and we are the board member of Providing. These agencies offer cash assistance and other programs, resume writing and assistance, and we work with them to educate our customers on the programs available to them if it's not directly money with MPU. And we'll be holding a workshop with 2 of them to get more information to pass on to the customers.
All right. Are there any questions of Shailene? All right, well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Shailene.
So essentially our shows end in November for all of our hardship customers, and it is the time to get them signed up and get extra programs to help them through the winter. Hopefully they become better payers and as a result of it. And Shailene and her whole team do a great job of managing this.
Are we ready for Barry? What do you think?
Jeff, just
We got one more, we're having a little trouble with
All right.
the,
All right, we'll
I'll
take
attempt to share if you want.
Give it a try, Barry, see if it'll go.
All right, we'll do.
Oh, that worked.
There we go.
You got it, Barry.
All right, so the update will be for the 2022 PHMSA grant, which, as we all know, was awarded, back several months ago in the amount of $10 million. March 2023 was the official award of the grant. It was to replace 4.3 miles of cast iron mains and gas services. This was the first of its kind grant in the gas industry, and I think we've talked about that a little bit. Only municipal gas companies could apply. It presented a number of challenges. Number one, there's not typically grants for the gas industry itself. Everybody was sort of learning on the fly, if you will. Complying with the Build America, Buy America Act was a challenge, continues to be a little bit of a challenge still, but we've cleared most of the hurdles with that. It took a while, but we're in a good spot now with that, I believe. Federal environmental permitting, another thing that we don't typically see or do in the gas industry. We had to do a Tier 2 site-specific environmental assessment. That was a learning process in and of itself. The whole application was new to all of us, but we got through it with PHMSA's help. And lastly, PHMSA had no experience, again, because there's no real mechanism for grants in the gas industry. They don't have experience, or the staff, quite honestly, to administer the federal grant. Now, they've ramped up in staff, and they've gained some experience since this all came out 2.5 years ago. And again, we're in a good place, but those are all challenges we had to overcome, and one of the reasons why it's taken so long really to put a shovel in the ground. In January 2024, we were issued a finding of no significant impact, FONSI for short, which cleared the way for our construction plans to be developed. We did that this spring and summer, developed final construction plans on or around the end of July, which allowed us to go out to bid. And in September, just last month, those bids were open and the project was awarded to CB Utility Company. They're in Bristol, Rhode Island. They have a generally very good reputation in the gas industry. We did do some due diligence with our folks at Pura. And they reported as much as they can that they typically don't see any issues with that company. So we're pleased to have gotten them. And we are scheduled to break ground on Asylum Street as early as next week. The contractor's already been out there saw cutting. There is a sign out there. I'm going to go back one slide in case you weren't aware. That sign in the top right is on Asylum Street right now in the vicinity of Grant Court. So just so everybody is aware of that.
Well, they were gonna put a new trail into the school.
Yeah, exactly, right.
We indicate it was on the sign, that's part of the grant process.
Yes, yep. So the preliminary work schedule, again, we're breaking ground on Asylum Street, and that limit of that project on Asylum really is Grant Court to West Main, Route 82. And West Pearl Street. We don't have obviously a lot of time before winter's going to set in to do much this year, but we're going to do as much as we can as weather allows. Next year, right in the spring, when the weather breaks for us, we're going to attempt to start North Main Street. That's the largest piece of this project. It's essentially from Burnham Square, although not quite Burnham Square, but close enough, to St. Regis Avenue along Boswell Avenue, basically Manny's Restaurant. That's a heck of a run for us on a state road, which adds challenges. We expect to see concrete will add challenges. There's water main, sewer main. So that will be a significant part of the project. 15th Street and 4th Street are just some small streets that had some legacy pipe there that would be included in that project. Then the last phase of that project is really the NFA area is what we call it. Franklin Street isn't necessarily by NFA, but it connects to McKinley, which connects to Rockwell, which connects to Crescent. So it's really what we had called the NFA area. Carroll Ave and Washington Street and some other side streets in that area are also included. Warren, Spalding, and Freeman, as you can see on that slide. So the project budget, so we talked about the grant award. The overall grant was $10 million. Our administrative and project management budget is about $700,000, and which allows a construction phase budget of $9.3 million. The awarded bid total, we'll call it $9 million. It's a couple $1,000 short of that, but essentially it's $9 million. So, the budget was pretty good. We didn't expect to be awarding this 3 years later, almost 3 years later. So of course, there's going to be inflationary issues there, which I think we did see. A lot of the construction phase budget will depend on how much road paving we have to do as well. And that really won't be known until we get in and then start doing some of the project. We think we're conservative on what we've projected to do for road paving. Hopefully there's a little bit of a cushion there, but again, we won't know until we actually start. And then lastly, on the horizon, 2023 grant, we have $10.9 million to do the remainder of the cast iron mains and services. That's still really in its early phases because we're getting 2022 off the ground. All of our efforts and resources are focused on 2022. Once that starts getting going and winter sets in, we'll really start advancing 2023, the environmental permitting and getting construction and plans and specs together as well, with an anticipated start date there of sometime in 2026. Could be a little bit sooner depending on how the 2022 grant goes, but that's what we're thinking right now. Now today, I'm actually at a conference for American Public Gas Association. PHMSA was here presenting today. The 2024 grant awards is actually, they're starting to go out today. PHMSA was pretty clear today that they would like to, their words, spread the wealth on this round of grant funding. So while they don't say it directly, we're recipients of both the 2022 and 2023, reading between the lines if they want to spread the wealth. I'm not sure where we're going to stand on 2024. I think we'll know in a couple of days if the mayor's office gets a notification one way or the other. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions of Barry?
Yeah, how much more do we need to do? I mean, if to correct the entire problem within the city?
So these two grants will take care of all of the cast iron mains in our entire system. Cast iron bell joints, the connection between two segments of pipe, is one of our highest risks as we go through our distribution integrity management program, or DIM. So these two grants gets us to knock off one of our highest risks in our entire system. Now, looking forward, we have thousands of indoor meters. That would probably be the next thing that we would have to go after for future grants or other opportunities to get those outside. That's a rising threat in our DIMP program, and it's also a recent regulation that PURA is going to implement fairly shortly, that all of those are going to have to be out within 20 years. That's a significant project for us.
That because it's easier to manage things with the meters being outside, or is it a danger?
It's a safety thing, Bob, really. And when you have low pressure system is an additional risk because there's no regulator on it. Without getting really into the weeds, the Merrimack Valley was a low pressure system that someone made a mistake and put high pressure into. Now, when those meters are inside, it leads to issues that may not necessarily happen with outdoor meters in a nutshell. But it's already a PHMSA recommendation coming out of the Merrimack Valley to get all indoor meters to the outside.
Also, the fire department can shut off an outside meter, but they can't necessarily get inside if there's gas blowing inside a house. So if the fire department gets there before we do and there's a meter set outside, they are trained to shut the valve off on that meter.
So in that situation, will there be any cost to the homeowners to,
No, in gas, we own to the meter. In water, it's a different demarcation point. In electric is also a different demarcation point, but we own gas all the way to the meter. Inside or outside.
Okay, are there any additional questions for Barry?
Oh, and Bob, when you say we'll have all this work done, distribution integrity management is continual improvement and you're continually analyzing your risk. So our risk down here, after we fix all of the cast iron and bare steel, gets rises to rise, and that becomes our highest risk. So it's never done the way they're continually looking for improvement to safety. Unfortunately, it's a tough bar to keep up with, but with all this work and this grant money, we're gonna be by far the most advanced of all the Connecticut gas companies and one of the most advanced in New England.
Nice. All right, thank you, Barry.
You bet.
All right. All right, that will take us to lead and copper assessments with Melissa.
Hi.
All right.
So it's been a big couple of weeks in the lead copper world. The LCRI, which is the lead copper rule improvement, supersedes the lead copper rule revision that came out on October 8th. And it doesn't become official until it's published in the Federal Register. And once it becomes published, then we have 3 years to implement. So if you look at like the first item, for instance, where it says replace all the lead service lines within 10 years, that's 10 years in 3 years. So it's actually in 2037. We have to do that. So everything starts in 3 years. So it doesn't start right now. So there's 6 big things that they came up with. These are just really high level points. The first one is, we've talked about this a lot, replacing all the lead service lines within the next 10 years or 13 years. One of the things it does say, and it's pretty specific, it says replacing the lines under the utilities control. So that's only lines that we own, which is only to the curb stop. And we'll talk about the numbers and what that means. The next thing is locating all the lead lines, and that's part of the inventory, which I'll talk about a lot in a minute. They want us to, one of the things is to increase the tap sampling. So right now we only sample the first liter that comes out of the tap. With the new one, we have to sample the first liter and the 5th liter. And they don't really care about the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We take the highest amount of lead in the top in those 2 and report that. That's our reporting number. The other thing they did is they lowered the action level. Right now, the action level is 15 parts per billion, and they're lowering that to 10 parts per billion. And then there's a lot of things about communication, reducing lead exposure in the houses. That talks about things like providing filters if they exceed the 10 parts per billion. We have to provide a grid of filter to them. If we disturb the line, if we replace a meter at a house where there's a lead line or there's an unknown line, we have to give them a picture, things like that. And then with communication, they have some very specific language that we have to put in the CCR now. One of the things is we're not allowed to say that our water is safe to drink. We can say it meets all requirements. You can't actually say it's safe to drink. So those are the 6 big things. But talking about the inventory, so that was due on the 16th of October. That was due last week. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did, because if you remember 2 months ago when I came and started talking about the inventory and we were talking about the modeling we were doing, what we did, and if you remember what I was talking about before, when we started going out to do field investigations of lines that we thought were lead, we weren't finding any lead. And the AI model that they were using assumes that there is lead in the system because it's using what they know is lead and the parameters that are in those houses and using that to sort of trap the lead in the rest of the system. But we didn't have lead. So we had to switch to this zero lead model or lead zero modeling approach, which is a little bit different. So basically what we did was, since our records weren't that great and we had all these lines that we said were lead, but weren't lead, we scrapped that all and we erased all our lead lines and made them all unknown. We did find that our copper records were really good. If we said it was copper within about 98, 99%. So we kept all the copper and then we had done all that field inventory. So what we looked at was sort of setting thresholds for lead lines that were in there. So when we went out there, we did all the field sampling. Switch to the next slide. We took our 3 rounds of sampling. We had 531 basement test field evaluations. And of those 531, we found 1 lead line. And these were all unknowns, these 531. So we said if we had 1 out of 531 lines, that actually equates to about 0.2% of our unknowns that are in our system is actually lead. So when you convert that, we had 9,700 or something unknowns. If you do the math, it turns out that we have 18 lines that we consider unknown of the 9,000 that are a high likelihood of lead. So that's where we're starting with now. So we're switching our modeling approach. And I have sort of this little graphic on the next page. It's like this big triangle. So the top 18, we think are lead, high likelihood of lead, but they're still unknown at this point. And then we use sort of a 3 times buffer. So we're saying from 18 to 52, that's medium likelihood of lead. And everything under that, the other 9,000 and change, are not lead. They're copper, they're non-lead. And that's one of the EPA terms. It can be, when you categorize a line, it can either be lead, galvanized requiring replacement, unknown, or not lead. It's the only 4 things they let you do. And so now we're saying that, we only have that, we have a bunch of unknowns, and we have 9,000 not leads. So we're doing pretty good. So really quickly, how we did this was we took our GIS and we exported it. We scrubbed all the lead out, made it all unknown. We put in all the things that were copper, that we knew were copper, and everything from the model that we said was not lead. And then we were still left with some unknowns. And then we did our field sampling where we knew we had confirmed lines. We put that in. And so that's sort of these are the step-by-step, oh, sorry, next slide. Sorry, sort of step-by-step process of getting our inventory. And then we had to so once we got the spreadsheet with all our 4 categories and all our lines identified, we had to upload it into the Connecticut, their template, which took a little bit of work. It's not the easiest template to work with. And then we did submit the inventory to the state on the 16th of October. And in summary, what it turned out to be, on the next slide, and this was such a great, it's good that we have, out of our total number of service lines, which is 11,086, we have non-lead 10,896 non-lead, 12 lead, 1 galvanized requiring replacement. What that means is at some point there was a lead line upstream of that. And we have 176 unknown lines, and everything else is good. So what we have to do now for our next steps is we have to send all these people letters. And I have actually copies of the letters. If anyone wants to do it, we're sending out to them. We have to send out different letters to each person. So if you have a lead line, you get a letter that says, you may have a lead line. That's all it says, we have a lead line. If you have a galvanized, same thing, you have a galvanized requiring replacement line, or if it's unknown, it says that it's a little bit longer. It says you have an unknown line and we give you some instructions on how to test it, or we will go out and test it if you want. So our next steps, that's just a screenshot of what the inventory, the actual spreadsheet from the Department of Public Health looks like. It's many, many, many worksheets. It's very confusing. It was kind of hard to work with, but this is the sheet that we did submit. And our next steps are, we're sending out the letters, and we have 30 days from the 16th of October to send the letters out, and we're hoping to get those out hopefully by the end of this week. And basically, like I just said, it has the letters. We have to validate the model, and that's the step after that. So of all those unknowns and all those, the 18 high likelihood of lead and the 52 medium likelihood of lead, we're going to do some more field work to evaluate those. We have to go fill out, we have to identify those unknowns. We have 10 years to identify those unknowns. But every year we have to submit an updated inventory until everything is known. So that column has no unknowns in it. And then we're going to, we have to actually present the model that we ran to the Public Health, Department of Public Health to get their okay on it and their buy-in on it. And then the last thing we're doing some corrosion control studies. Make sure that our corrosion control is where it needs to be. And that's all I've got for lead copper. It's been a very interesting couple of weeks.
Lower the action level from 15
To
to 10. What sort of impact does that have on our system? Any at all?
Yes. So we've been doing we're right in the middle of our sampling round now. We just finished it. And we have about, that doesn't take effect for 3 years. Remember, so we're still looking at the 15. But I think we have like 4 or 5 above the 15.
You do.
Yeah, and maybe a couple more between 10 and 15 of the known lead line. So that's one of the other things when we start moving into the next step and the LCRI, we have to test confirmed lead lines.
So all those exceedances of 10 are in an unknown or lead known.
They're in confirmed lead, the ones that are high.
So even with corrosion prevention of control, you still have exceedances of 10.
But the way it works is you only report, we only have a utility exceedance if we're 90% So if 10% of our values are above that number, and we're.
Is that on an annual average or is it?
No, it's just every time. So every 6 months. So we have to do 60 samples every 6 months. And, you know, if you hit the 90%, it's the P, they call it the P90. So 10%, so it's whatever, six samples over that number, and we won't be there.
But as you can see, the projects have gone from
Yeah.
a little assessment, a lot of construction to a lot of assessment and even more assessment
And little construction,
and little construction.
little construction.
But for all the ones where you suspect you have lead, you have to dig down to go to.
Well, the ones that, we can go into their basement to check on their meter, or we can do the vacuum excavation at the curb stop. But we don't have to replace anything from the curb stop to the meter, they're pretty clear. We only have to replace the lead service lines that are under our control. So it's from the main to the curb stop is all we have to. I mean, we're gonna tell them, you know, while we're doing it, you know, we could help you with yours or something.
All right, very well, thank you. All right, and that brings us to last but not least, by any stretch, the wastewater treatment plant update. Larry?
Supervised.
Yeah, so this is the latest overhead picture. You can actually finally see things showing up, actually look like construction as opposed to just like piles on the ground. The new clarifier, this will be number 2. Like I said, this existing clarifier will have 3 sister clarifiers. They're all getting built at the same time because we have to get rid of these in the next step to build our headworks. You can see the effluent pump station is starting to go in. The little corner here will be the UV disinfection, but we have to, now that the chlorine season's over, we're gonna lose this side of the chlorine contact chamber so we can start to build the UV disinfection system. They're repairing all the concrete walls in the aeration basins 4, 5, and 6 for the installation of a new system. They're starting work on primary number 2 as well. So it's moving along and things are actually coming vertical as opposed to just piles in the ground. That's the sludge, thick and sludge storage building. The back of the slide, just to reference where it is. Kind of in the shadows over here. So that's a brand new building, a new process. You can't get rid of digested sludge anymore, so I'll have to do liquid sludge. And like I said, there's a lot of steel. Next picture. There's actually a wall now. That's the first thing that's actually come up out of the ground. So it's not a slow process, but they are pouring a lot of concrete every day. And putting a lot of slide. That is clarifier number 2. They'll be pouring, you can see the formwork around here. They'll be pouring a pretty big base slab. It's all sloped down. That clarifier early next week. So that should be online by early spring is what they're saying. Just to say.
If you look at that in scale, you can see 2 bodies.
Yeah.
Point to where the guys are standing.
Yeah, you can see this. Some of these guys are 6 feet tall. I mean, it's pretty deep in the ground. It's big. It's a big hole in the ground, for sure. Slide. That is clarifiers 3 and 4. You see that the new, it's a 36-inch pipe, which brings the sludge in. There's other pumps and pull the sludge back out. You can see the black soil. That's the stuff they still have to get rid of. Stockpiling it slowly. It's got to remediate down to where they're actually taking it, to be honest with you. I don't know where they're actually taking it. It's a lot of, it's like a lot of lead in that soil. Next slide. Yeah, they just pour, this is the effluent pump station. They just kind of poured a base slab, and then all the walls will be starting to be poured as well. So that's the moving part. And the next slide is, that's like a corner of the UV disinfectant system. I said they put the piles if they could. Now that we don't use chlorine in the off season, this whole tank is going to get ripped out very shortly. Start building the UV disinfection system. So, honestly, like I did a 3-month look ahead, and it's really just concrete rebar. I mean, it's no other way to say it. It's the slowest part demolition of the admin building. They're waiting for parts for the wireless bridge. It should be early November. There's a little bit of lead. Some of the windows have remediated. Otherwise, the building would be coming down. According to the contractor, well before Christmas. It's their plan.
You happy with Nickerson?
They're doing a great job. I mean, they brought a lot to the table for value engineering. I would say it's like 1.7 million less than the contract value. And we just had, there's over 30 change orders submitted, reductions and adds-on for a total change order. The last one was $14,000, $162 million project. Now they bring a lot to the table, and because it's quicker for them to build with different solutions, and actually a lot of cost saving measures. They're good to work with at the moment.
Can they pour concrete in the winter?
Absolutely, yep, absolutely. Depends on, you know, how cold it is. If it's a super thick pour, they gotta keep it, you know, they gotta keep it with blankets. So they don't stop too much. But if it's too hot in the summer, you gotta insulate it too, because it can flash your inside the concrete. It's a chemical process, the concrete gets so hot. So the wall's like super thick. You gotta be real careful.
There's no problem with the liquid sludge being in contact with the concrete?
No, they'll coat it on the inside, but no, it's just, it's all organic still. It's okay. It's all. Yeah, they, at least once a month, there's a meeting, there's a Wednesday meeting at 9:30 every week. They come down at least once a month to pay attention. So we had all the younger engineers came down for a tour about 3 years ago. We toured Chief Daly, Deanna Rhodes, fireman, bunch of we did. They wanted to, I didn't know that Chief worked there 8 years ago, so back in the late 80s, so he was pretty excited to see it.
But if anyone from the board would like a tour, we can set that up and be happy to have you down there. And Matt Ross is our project engineer, and he loves to show off the great work that's going on.
So one of the big benefits of this has been that once it's all up and operating, the harbor water is going to be a lot cleaner than it used to be. What's the time frame on that?
I mean, like I said, initially, once we get rid of even the chlorine water going out there, deep, you know, it's approved, but they're forcing, no one's using chlorine for disinfection anymore. Even though it's like lightning cool water going out. I mean, it should be immediate impact, to be honest with you. I mean, just the work we're doing in the distribution system, is we can actually use Rose Alley at its full potential. Because if you try to ramp up Rose Alley during heavy flows, it will the way the influent channel comes into the plant, it will overtop it. That's a huge no. So fortunately, you have to ramp Rose Alley down. That won't happen anymore with the new state of headquarters. So we can really use Rose Alley for the full 12 million that it can actually pump. We didn't get a year now.
So one of the things that we're looking at, and legislators suggest that we do is to make two arguments when we're advocating for more funds. One is the clear the financial one, what the impact is going to be on our customers. But then secondarily, what are the environmental impacts? We're going to be able to put together something that gives a solid estimate that the rivers are going to be cleaner and ultimately Long Island Sound, but we know how much less nitrogen is being pumped out. Well, there's an algorithm you can do, or a map you can do.
Yeah, there's zero, there's no nitrogen going out. We will be paying the credit for.
So there's, I think people have to report credit that came out of.
115 to 125.
The past 2 weeks or so. What I'd like to do is get some of those advocacy groups to come out, get a little while, tour the project, get a sense of it, and then have them, for like the endorsement we're doing, and then help us amplify the environmental message with legislators and the as we go.
I suppose since the state is always cognizant of what community is getting what money, I mean, this is something that's going to improve things.
No nitrogen going out, no chlorinated water, and Rose Alley won't be dumping as much into the harbor.
So again, just so I understand the timing, when should I put on my bathing suit?
4 years. Give it 4 years. Give it a solid 4 years.
Things will be improving incrementally, Bob, but it's really when the whole system comes on board is when it really will have the max impact.
Okay. And that's 4 years.
4 years. Yep. Like I said, we're almost a little over a year in, but 5 years, 5-year project's about right.
Okay.
There'll be some hiccups at some point.
All right, great.
Thanks, Larry.
All right, thanks, Larry. All right, well, all that being said, all we have left is executive session. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I have a quick question.
All right.
On the sewer service rates. So when there's an exceedance of VOD or suspended solids, what kind of cost is that to the?
We haven't had any that we since we put the new rates in place. Have we, Larry? Any exceedances? None that I know of.
All right. Okay, good.
Now, back in the day when we had Federal Pig Board or Cascades, there were exceedances back then, and that's one of the reasons we had to start making these changes in our regulations. Put a little force into it.
All right, good.
All right, thank you, Bill. All right, well, with that, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Second, Bill. All right, are there any questions or any discussion about executive session, going into executive session? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. We are in executive session. Chris, would you like to stay behind?
We'll have Chris, Jeff, Steve, and Simone for the first part, and then we'll all let them go. I'd like Hugh Murray, our labor attorney, to be here for the entire session. And thank you, everyone. And thanks so much for the explain.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Anytime, there you go.
Yeah, you can sit anywhere you're comfortable.
All right, I'm obligated to say, we're going into executive session to discuss.
It is. I'm just gonna stop recording.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to, you can, go ahead.
Are we on? All right.
Yes, sir.
We're going into executive session this evening to discuss confidential trade secret and commercially valuable confidential or proprietary information not subject to inspection or public disclosure pursuant to section 12105 and 7232A of the Connecticut General Statutes. This information is commercially valuable, confidential, and proprietary, not subject to public disclosure pursuant to Public Act number 98-212. And also to discuss personnel matter or matters of an employee or employees and or public official pursuant to chapter 14, section 1206A of the Connecticut General Statutes. Under that, we are in executive session.